Hey guys, so since I started posting Cyber Dragon replay videos on Master Duel, I've been getting a lot of requests on a combo guide and how to play this deck, so I thought I'd outline the key plays here. Now I did just recently post a deck profile for post-February 2022 banlist format, so make sure to check that out as well. Now I've also posted Cyber Dragon tips and ruling videos in the past, and this current video will cover some of the topics covered there already, but make sure to check those videos out as well if you really want to learn this deck. So let's just get started. Alright, so let's start with the most basic play. Essentially, the main play that you're typically always doing with this deck is you're bringing out Infinity as well as Anaconda, and Anaconda will either bring out Cybernetic Rampage or Dragoon or DPE depending on what you're playing. So usually, there's obviously various combinations to bring out that board, but to keep it simple, let's at least say we have core in hand just to make sure we're grounded on something, and then any combination of like these cards along with core would get you to that board. And technically there's a bit more combination as well, but I'm not going to get too nitty gritty with this. This is just kind of like the most basic key play that you should know. So let's just say in this instance, let's just say we just had core and hers, and then you had like 4 other going second cards because you are going second deck. So then you would start off with normal summoning the core and use its effect to search that Cyber Dragon spell or trap, and that effect is mandatory of course. And in this case, if we have the hers, we would add that repair plant so that we can add the Galaxy Soldier. So then we have to link this off into that All Mirage, which is why All Mirage is so important, so that you have now a Cyber Dragon engrave, and now you can activate repair plant, and then this will add us that Galaxy Soldier. Now if you had, let's say, already a Galaxy Soldier in hand, in that case then you would search something like the Emergency or still the repair plan with core, and you would just get and add the hers. So essentially you're trying to get the missing piece of the puzzle. So now we're going to trigger Soldier's effect from hand. You're going to pitch a light monster for cost, which is the hers, and special the soldier. Then you're going to go chainlink 1 soldier, chainlink 2 hers. So now hers is going to add you original Cyber Dragon from deck to hand, and soldier will just add you another Galaxy Soldier. Now at this point, you're just doing that all over again. You're going to pitch the Cyber Dragon to summon the Soldier, and now you have 2 light level 5s, and now you can go into the Nova. And at this point, you're going to use Nova's effect. You're going to detach a material for a cost and target a special summon Cyber Dragon. I just get the original because if they let's say they have like DD Crow, I don't really want them to banish a baby Cyber Dragon. They're typically more important. And so now at this point, we can overlay right into Infinity. We have an Omni Negate, and you use these 2 materials to go into Anaconda, and this is where you either send the Overload Fusion or the Red Eyes Fusion or Fusion Destiny, whatever you're playing, and you bring out that fusion monster. So for example, if you're spending Overload Fusion, then you would pay 2,000 life points, and then you would let's say banish the Cyber Dragon and the hers, and you would bring out Cybernetic Rampage like that, and then you send the 2 light monsters for Rampage, and then you attack for game. So now let's backtrack and do the slightly alternate way of getting to this board. Okay, so now let's say you actually open something like Core Machine Dude. This is kind of like the ideal starter, because now you can actually use Core and you can add anything you want, because we already have access to the Infinity play. So there are several options. I mean, you could search something like Overflow, for example, for the follow-up if you can't kill them and you still have some kind of pop. You could also search a ref system, for example, in case this gets ashed, then you can link this off to All Mirage, return the core back, special it with the ref system, and then link those 2 off for Anaconda and bring out something like Dragoon. Or you can search something like Emergency for an additional follow-up for next turn. It really depends. But for now, let's just say for now we're just going to search that Overflow. And so we're going to activate the Machine Dupe targeting the core. It is a Cyber Dragon on the field, so now we can actually bring out the original Cyber Dragons and bring out 2. Now you have the 2 level 5s, and same thing, you can go into the Nova. Now at this point, this is our 4th summon, and you could technically go right into Infinity as our 5th summon and negate Nibiru, but the thing is we can actually play through Nibiru quite well, so I actually always still go into the All Mirage, and then now that we have a valid target in terms of a Cyber Dragon, we can use Nova, detach for cost, and you can actually still special out that same Cyber Dragon that you detach for cost, as long as you had a Cyber Dragon engraved to be able to attempt to activate that effect. And now it's kind of the same story now, right? So you go into Infinity, and then you can go into Anaconda, and you pay cost, pay that 2,000 life points, and you send the Overload Fusion. And then here you would again just banish in this instance the core and the Cyber Dragon, bring out the Rampage. In terms of the monsters that you send for Rampage, for the most part you're always going to send something like hers and core. And as long as you did not use hers' effect that turn, which in our case, this scenario, we did not because we used machine dupe, then you can trigger hers effect, which can let you actually add back that Cyber Dragon core you just sent as well, along with it, back to your hand, because the baby Cyber Dragons are treated as Cyber Dragon in grave, so then this will still be able to add it from grave, but if you're adding from deck, it has to be the original Cyber Dragon. Now, another scenario is that instead of just adding back that core, you might actually just add back a original Cyber Dragon and from deck to your hand, because then since you search the overflow, that means you actually have 3 pops, because you can also banish this from hand. So, or technically you do have that original Cyber Dragon here, so if you actually negate on your opponent's turn, you could detach your Cyber Dragon so that you have an extra target. Well, I shouldn't say target, this card does not target, but I should say you have an extra material to be able to have multiple pops as well. Although I do typically like to detach Nova first, because if I ever bring back with a Naxxur, then I can bring back the Nova, and then I can overlay into a second Infinity. So it kind of all depends on the situation. Okay, so now let's backtrack again on when we were on our 4th summon. And so now let's say we go into that Almirage as our 5th summon, and our opponent indeed does Nibiru us. And at that point, you would just, so you would send these 2 off, and you get the token. And now, because the Nova was sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, we can trigger that, and you can special out something like the Mechabell. And now, the token can just be linked off for that Link Spider, and you would just turbo into Anaconda. And in this sense, for example, I would just send something like Red Eyes Fusion and bring out Dragoon, or you could bring out like DP, or maybe even just Rampage if you have the materials engraved. So that's something to play around it. Now, if you don't play Dragoon or DP, in that case, you are likely not even playing the Link Spider as well. So at that point, instead, when you are back in this situation, you would trigger Nova, and you would probably bring out something like Cybernetic Rampage. And so in this instance, so for example, now because let's say in our scenario we did not trigger hers effect, let's say you had like a monster in hand, right? So then if you were to trigger Rampage in this instance, you could send something like hers and Naxxur, and the hers would trigger, you could add back the Naxxur, and then at this point you can pitch Naxxur to special it, Naxxur effect, you would bring back that Nova, and then you can just overlay now into your Infinity. And you can either suck up, if your opponent put the Nibiru in attack mode, you could suck theirs up, or you could just suck that Naxxur up of your own, and you are still able to put this up through a Nibiru. Okay, so now let's just say that you don't play Dragoon or DP, and let's say there's no reason for you to bring out Anaconda and Cybernetic Rampage because you were not going to kill them anyways, and you want to play more of a safer route. So in that case, if you can, like when you can still use Nova's effect and try to attach the hers as materials through Infinity. Like you would basically specialize in attack mode, you would go into Infinity, and then you would suck it up. That way, when you negate on your opponent's turn, you can just like detach your hers first, and then hers would trigger. You can like add the Cyber Dragon core that's in your grave back to your hand for follow-up, or you can add like the original Cyber Dragon. So that's something to look out for. And another thing is, let's say you're trying to go into Zeus play, and that's why you didn't bother going to Anaconda and Rampage. So then at this point, let's say you attack, and then you overlay into Zeus. And then let's say you are, you use the materials to banish, or not banish, to clear the field. So you would detach 2, and assuming that you use hers this turn already, just like save that until the next turn. So, and then you can also, in this instance, it's a very specific example, you could just chain Almirage just to target it and protect it because from card effect destruction, because it's going to get sent anyways. So you clear your opponent's field, right? And now, if you also had access to like Naxxur and again another monster, it doesn't have to be Cyber Dragon, but at this point, you could actually still pitch it, summon the Naxxur, and again, same thing as before, you would go, you would special out that Nova, and if you do play that second Infinity, you can overlay it here, and then suck it up with the Infinity, and at this point then you now have access to, you were able to bring up both Zeus and Infinity, so that of course you would want to negate first with Infinity, whatever it is, because if you use Zeus and Infinity is just gone as well. And then let's say, for example, let's say you your opponent plays something, you negate it, and then they like summon something, and you have no choice but to clear the field. You would just clear these 2, and then everything would clear, and then again now hers would trigger, and then you can just add back something like Naxxur, so that next turn, when your turn rolls on, you can again summon the Naxxur and bring back that Infinity, and then you can like either suck up your own monster, or if they have an attack position monster, you can do that as well, and just keep kind of grinding from there. So now another key play that you need to know when playing this deck is sort of our follow-up grindy key play, which involves the core's graveyard effect. So essentially, if you do not control any monsters and your opponent controls at least one monster, you can banish the core in grave for cost, and typically, as I mentioned in my deck profile, you are bringing out something like the Naxter, and the position kind of matters depending on if your opponent has attack position monster or not, so that you can suck it up with Infinity. But in this case, so let's say special it, and you have various targets. In this scenario, you could either bring out that Rampage if it was fusion summoned successfully, the Nova if you play a second Infinity so you can go over it, or let's say even if you do, you banish the second copy of Infinity through prosperity, then you can just straight up bring this. So you have multiple options, and essentially, it sort of becomes like your follow-up, and you can kind of either, you have the Infinity, suck up your opponent's monster, you have an Omni negate, or let's say if you're going for the kill, you could do something like this and bring out the Rampage back from grave, and then trigger Rampage effect, and you could send something, like the horror, the core, and the hers, and again trigger the hers in the grave so that you can add back the core, and you haven't normal summoned yet, so you can normal summon. Now remember though, if you use that graveyard effect of core, you cannot use the other effect to search, so this core will not be actually doing anything. And then from here, for example, you could just link those two off and go into Seeger, and then enter battle. You attack, preferably try to use this effect in the damage step, pump the Rampage to 42, and then attack 3 times, and it's going to deal damage. Like I said in the deck profile, Seeger just will not do any damage. So that's sort of your follow-up play. Now for the core grave effect, another possible target which won't come up too much is, let's say again you're banishing core. Instead of Naxter, let's say, you could technically summon something like hers, and this kind of depends. For example, if your opponent has Zeus, then you can bring out the hers, because then they're going to be forced to wipe the field, because otherwise you can just go into Cybernetic Fortress Dragon with this and get rid of the Zeus. And if they get rid of this, then this will trigger, add you another Cyber Dragon, and then you can do it again and let them waste their Zeus materials. Another rare example, which you might have seen in my Master Duel replay, is that let's say you didn't really have much of a play, and you can actually make this as a level 5, right? And then so now you are locked into machines, and if you only had something like a Rev system, then you could bring back that Cyber Dragon, and now these are both considered level 5s, and then you can just go into, for example, like your Nova, and you can do your shenanigans and bring out Infinity, whatever. So that's just another alternate line of play. Now another interaction that you should be aware of is when it comes to both Cybernetic Overflow and Cyberload Fusion. So let's say you have these set, and on your opponent's turn, let's say in the end phase they set some cards, and some monsters, I don't know. Let's say you banish of different levels. So in our case, we're going to banish these 3, and we pop 3 cards. Now on the resolution, and this is important, do not change Cyberload Fusion to either Overflow or just anything if you can, because Cybernetic Rampage is a when you can effect, which means it can miss timing to be able to pop spell and traps. And if you don't know what that means, you can check out my first ruling video, and I'll explain that a little bit more in detail. But basically, long story short, what you need to know is just activate Cyberload Fusion as Chain Link 1. So on the resolution, still in end phase, for example, you could activate Cyberload Fusion, and you return back the 3 that you just banished of Overflow, and then you could summon the Rampage on your opponent's end phase, for example. And then here, because it was Chain Link 1, this will be able to pop spell and traps up to the number of materials used, so in this case 3. So basically you just pop 3 cards with Overflow, and let's say another 3 spell and traps with Cybernetic Rampage, and then your turn rolls on, and then you can use its effect to send the 2 cards like the hers and core, and just follow up from there. Okay, so now the final kind of, not really a key play, but a play that's there, and it's because some people have asked me where Cyber Twin might come up, and so this really doesn't happen that much anymore. But for example, let's say you have the core, and your opponent has like a wide open board, and let's say you have, you get the Cyberload Fusion, and you can activate Machine Dupe, and basically, and you only need only just 1 Cyber Dragon to pull this OTK off. And so essentially, like, if you want to just play around Nibiru and not summon 5 in the main phase, but I've showed you, especially in this route, you can play through Nibiru pretty well. Or let's say, not that Phantasme is common right now, but in a format where it is, you don't want to bother linking it off and trigger the Phantasme, like what you could do is, you attack with these 3, but like I said, you only need to be able to attack these 2, and then if you go Cyberload Fusion and go into Cyber Twin, for example, and then that can attack twice for OTK. So another situation where this might come up is if your opponent D-shifters you, then that's where it is actually, this is kind of like your only way to OTK that turn if they don't have anything on the field in terms of monsters. But this play is pretty risky, right? Because for example, like if you go into Cyberload Fusion during battle phase and you're attacking with the Cyber Twin, let's say if they have something like, if it's kind of a rogue deck and they have like Gizmek, for example, Orochi, they can special it, and then that ruins your OTK, or if they even just imperm this during the battle phase, also ruins your OTK. So it's kind of risky. It used to kind of happen more, I think, in like older previous formats a couple of years ago, but not as much. But that play is there for you to know. Alright guys, so that was it for the basic combo guide. Hope that was helpful. In the meantime, you can also check out my Cyber Dragon replay videos to really understand how to play this deck. Take care guys.